Rusty is on his way over to give our invitation.
Please pray with me. Lord, we can never be grateful enough for all the blessings that you have bestowed upon each and every one of us. We thank you today for this food, for this fellowship, and these friends. May they strengthen and inspire us to become lights in what often seems to be a darkening world. May we who are pilgrims, conscious of life's varying scenes, learn by faith, our Father, to cling to thee. We know that thou wilt be in the future as thou hast been in the past. We know that thou wilt lead us through all the tomorrows as thou hast led us through all the yesterdays. We know that thou wilt not let us go, even when we in willful neglect and indulgence try to wander from thy way. As we set our faces toward the new year, we know full well that it will bring many changes. The old must give place to the new. Time does not stand still, nor the world cease from its turning. Wilt thou give to us the courage and fortitude of mature men and women that will enable us to stand upon our faith as the Spirit of the living Lord shall give us strength. In thy strong name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Thank you, Rusty. I want to remind everybody about the card buckets on your tables. Please remember the card fund in your giving. I'd like to ask Past President Carey to come up here and introduce all of our visiting Rotarians and guests.
Good afternoon, everyone. All right. I don't believe that we have any visiting Rotarians. When I came in, I hadn't seen Jim Hudson come in. But if you have a guest, if you'll please stand, and if somebody could come up and... Do we have another mic? Oh, it's got, okay. You want to go ahead and introduce your guest.
Hi everybody, I'm Rita Patel with Hotel Trundle, and I brought my husband today, Marcus Muncie.
Good afternoon, Greg Witherspoon. I have two guests this afternoon. We have Dr. Sandra Broussard, who is our Chief of Teaching and Learning in Michigan School District 1, and we have Dr. Jeff Long, who is our Human Resource Officer.
I'm Rex Wilson, and I'm pleased to be able to introduce once again Frank Martin. No, I'm sorry, that was last time. This time he's come as my son, Reg Wilson. He's with CPI Security. If you have a system that needs to be checked or whatever, call Reg. He's tops. And the CPI has the football player, so I'm pretty excited about it.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Cynthia Giles, and my guest today is Jordan Whitehead. She is the new social media marketing manager at Cutthroat Marketing.
All right, is that everyone? All right, welcome. Thank you for being with us today, and I hope everybody has a great week.
Thanks, Carey. Let's all take a few minutes, get to know each other a little bit better, enjoy each other's company. We're going to do a table social for the next 3 to 5 minutes. I'll let you know when we're back.
Well, we're having a conversation. No, I haven't. It's already I can do as long or short as you would like. One this year, so you know, if I run out of stuff, which I really do. Well, that's what I do. Yeah, Okay. My go-to guy is a new father. There's a 5-month-old daughter up in Greenville, so that was going to be a babysitting situation. For him, I guess. Well, when wish that, obviously, changed his your life.
We'll see. We'll just see this. Joe. You got a list of it?
So far from everything.
I didn't download it all. After the meeting, we'll take the table, print out. Just remember,
Oh, I moved my meeting with Kristen to she said she has it's I know, but they were so yeah. Now once they do their grand opening, eventually Saturday morning when there's no stop by, they're having people set up. We were like, wow, I guess we can. How many maybe she was having a conversation. I didn't realize that. I didn't drink. When there's somebody going. So people know the basic premise. Yeah. Tomorrow. Oh, I know, that's what I mean.
It's like so many different foundations.
Let's see, we were
well, I know the teachers will have conversations. See how they're looking at things out. Opportunity to do the same thing. Based on the news, well,
yes, I don't have to mention my name. I'll just say, yes, sir.
So
We've been to a couple of them. We've been across campus. It's like, yeah. We just get to house. Yeah, we did go.
Okay, welcome back. Hope you all enjoyed the opportunity for fellowship with your fellow Rotarians and our guests. I'm always glad to have Rex Wilson here. He does a lot of good work in health and happiness, puts a lot of effort into it, and I know today will be no different. So there's the setup, Rex. Take it away.
Thank you, sir. I remember when I used to run up here, but I can't do that anymore. Sad that age, a lot of you know a lot about it. First of all, thank you. First of all, a couple of notes. Today, do I need to get this closer? Yeah. Oh. A lot of help, you know. You wait, it'll be your turn next. Happy birthday, Michael Capp.
Happy birthday. Where's Michael?
Here he is. Jack Van Loan is in the Lexington Hospital and would appreciate it if you could hear from some folks. A mention and a moment for the deaths of Sid Krim and Moffett Burris and Ann Addy, all of whom have been members of this club at one time or another. Just a moment. Amen. As always, we can profit from Winston Churchill's wisdom when he said, "Don't worry about avoiding temptation. As you grow older, it will avoid you." Do you remember when we were young and couldn't wait to grow up so we could do whatever we wanted to? How's that working out for you? I actually thought growing old would take longer. Two 90-year-old guys grew up together, Joe and Frank, very, very close friends. When Frank learned that Joe was dying, he visited every day. One day Frank said, "Joe, we love playing baseball all through high school. When you get to heaven, you've got to find a way to let me know if there's baseball there." Joe promised from his deathbed, "Frank, you've always been my best friend. If it's possible, I'll do it for you." One night after Joe died, Frank awoke to a blinding white light. He heard a voice calling out, "Frank, Frank." Frank said, "Who is it?" "It's Joe. It's me, Joe. But you just died." "I'm telling you, it's me, your best friend, Joe." "Joe, where are you?" "I'm in heaven. And I have some really good news and some not so good news." Frank said, "Tell me the good news first." "The good news is there's baseball in heaven. Better yet, all of our old buddies are here too. Better than that, we're all young again, and it's always springtime. The weather's always perfect. We can play every day and never get tired." "That's fantastic, beyond my wildest dreams. So what's the bad news?" "Well, you're scheduled to pitch next Tuesday." Three men were walking through the forest when they came upon a large raging river. They needed to get across to the other side. The first man prayed, "God, please give me the strength to cross the river." So God gave him big arms and strong legs, and he was able to swim across. It took 2 hours, though, and he nearly drowned. Seeing the whole thing, the second man prayed differently. "God, please give me the strength and the tools to cross the river. So God gave him a rowboat, strong arms and strong legs. He was able to cross the river in about 2 hours, almost capsizing twice in the raging river. The third man, seeing all of this, prayed this way: God, please give me the strength, the tools, and the intelligence to cross the river. So he was turned into a woman. She checked the map, hiked 100 yards upstream, and walked across the bridge. The moral, gentlemen, if you don't succeed, do it the way your wife told you to do it first. AT&T fired their president, John Walker, after 9 months, saying he lacked intellectual leadership. He received a $26 million severance package. In my humble opinion, it's probably not Walter who's lacking intelligence. Looks like to me he's doing pretty well. Our whole family's been together a lot over the holidays. Most of you have too. Unfortunately, the subject of Poppy's old age was discussed at great length. I'm Poppy, and the family thinking is that I'm so like my mother, I'll probably live into my 90s just as she did. My 3 children are each wonderful, each different. But I got to thinking how each child would contribute to the Poppy problem. I can picture the one who's paying for the nursing home. And I can picture the one who's visiting me the most. And that one, the one who will be sneaking in Canadian Club and Twinkies.
Thank you, Rex, and yeah, here's to many, many, many more years of you in health and happiness. Great job.
Yes.
Just a couple announcements from me, and then we'll get going with our program. I sent all the new members of our club an email last week just to announce that we're having a fireside chat on January 28th. It's going to be from 5:30 to 7 o'clock at the King's Grand Clubhouse. My wife Lindsay and I are hosting it, so all of our new members and those past presidents who were asked by Michael Kahn will be able to join us. We're going to have a good time. Next week we are not meeting. It is MLK Day, so please enjoy the day off and try to do something good for your fellow man on that day. The Rotary International Convention is coming up in June. It's going to be in Hamburg, Germany. We've got a small contingency from our club who's going to be there, small but mighty. And if you are interested in going to help coordinate travel plans and things to do while in Germany, please see President-elect Louisa, and she would love to talk to you about that. And lastly from me, the Lake Murray Irmo Club, our fellow club, is having their 30th anniversary dinner on January the 30th at the Palmetto Club. If you are free that evening and would like to go, let me know. I'm going to go, and you know, when we had our 100th anniversary a couple of years ago, we had a lot of support from other clubs, and so this is a big anniversary year for them. So if you would like to join me, just see me after the meeting, or call me or send me an email before the 30th, and we'll make plans. So, and with that, I would like to introduce Rhonda Hunsinger, who is going to introduce our speaker.
Look at how high this microphone is. All right, this will be a few minutes. Okay. The more you go, I'll have to push it back up a little bit. All right, thank you so much. Rex is a tough act to follow, so Morihiko, good luck with that. Sometimes when Morihiko speaks at functions like this, I'm not around, so somebody will be designated to read his bio to you, and you'll hear about the wonderful awards he's won, and the orchestras he's conducted, and the premieres that he's presented, and but it's me introducing him, so I'll be a little different. The relationship between a music director and an executive director is unique in leadership. I call Morihiko my daytime husband. Fortunately, he and my nighttime husband are very good friends. We were all together last night with the guest artist for our concert at Inakaya and had a great time. I've been with the Philharmonic for 20 years, and Morihiko has been there for half of those years as our music director, and we are so very, very fortunate to have him. We essentially have dual leadership roles. Morihiko is in charge of the vision and the artistic excellence of this organization. I'm in charge of making sure that we have the money and the ability and the marketing to get the orchestra to the stage to present it to the community. And we also work together on outreach in the community. We take ensembles to schools, we go to hospitals, shelters, prisons, and communities that otherwise might never have the chance to experience live symphonic music. I'm not going to read you Morihiko's full bio. I will tell you that he has been with the Spokane Symphony as the resident conductor for 16 years. The word resident is a little bit misleading because he does not live there. He actually lives in Northampton, Massachusetts, where he recently accepted the assistant professor and director of orchestral studies position at UMass Amherst. He spends a lot of time on airplanes. And he did live in Columbia for a little while, so I'm very proud to share that I was the official babysitter of his cat, Judici, when he lived on Main Street. And Judici is still alive and well and now living in Northampton, too. Morihiko is guest conducted with the Buffalo Philharmonic, the Symphonies of Oregon, Charleston, Chattanooga, Lansing, Peoria, Green Bay, and as well as the Chicago Musica and many more. He's collaborated with artists that you know and some that you don't know. Some of you have heard of Bella Fleck and the Flecktones, and then Bella Fleck separately, Brandon Carlisle, Pink Martini, Sergio Mendez, Edgar Meyer, and more. Morihiko is a native of Kagoshima, Japan, and holds degrees from Andrews University and the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. He previously served as music director of the Holland Symphony Orchestra in Michigan and taught at Eastern Washington University and Andrews University. Now you would think, my final words, having a Japanese conductor, I would learn a lot of Japanese while I was here. He has taught me one word, beer. And it's biru.
Thank you so much. It's ironic because, Rhonda, that you would end your introduction with biru because I'm going through a dry January. So my sense of timing is all off, so thank you so much for the clock for this. And I'm glad that apparently earlier this week, and I was notified of this later, because I wasn't sure how to take it initially, and you'd be the judge. Apparently one of our board members referred me as the, what was that, musical Dabble Sweeney? And I'm not, within these walls, I don't know if what that means. But there is a sense of, people always ask, what does a conductor do? And my honest answer is, and as I actually get more experienced and as I get older in this profession, then my answer has become increasingly, I don't know. You know what it is? Because when you are young, and I now have the privilege of training young conductors who might be going on to professional conducting or going into teaching at high school level, conducting high school bands and orchestras and choirs, or at collegiate level. And when you are first starting out, you learn the craft, you learn the technique, you learn the mechanics of conducting. And last time I was here, I showed you using your utensils, how to do the basic moves. So that's the basic things. And then you learn that, and so as a result, you learn how to control is probably not the right word, but how to control the orchestra, how to have enough technique to show so that the orchestra can follow. As I get older and more experienced, I'm starting to realize that's really like 1/2, maybe even if that, of the equation.
you know, the more experience we get, we learn how to let orchestra play. And know when to step in, when to intercede, so to speak, and take charge, and knowing when to just let them have freedom and let them play. And so, you know, it's sort of that's why I honestly say, and that line, where that line lies, is different for every conductor and every orchestra. So that's why it's when you ask me, what does a conductor do? That's a loaded question, in a sense. We are known as musicians, as far as musicians go, of all the different instrumentalists and vocalists and so on. Conductors are probably known for the big ego, so to speak. There's a pearly gate joke. One day a trombone player gets to the pearly gate, and if you were a band nerd and if you played in marching band in high school or college, that's sort of a joke in itself. So the trombone player gets to the pearly gates, and he's asked, "Oh, what were you? I was a principal trombone player, such and such orchestra." "Oh, great! Just so happens we have an opening, trombone opening, in an orchestra in heaven." So the trombone says, "Really? Who conducts it?" "Well, of course, God." It's like, "Oh, okay." So he's curious. "Well, just curious, how is God as a conductor?" And the answer was, "Oh, he's all right. I mean, the only problem is he thinks he's Leonard Bernstein sometimes." But going back to the Apple comment, it is similar in the sense that what is ironic is that you see all those people on stage at concerts. Conductor is the only person who does not make a sound. So it's in the same way, it's similar in the sense that we always compare ourselves to coaches, football coaches, baseball managers, because we don't actually play on the field, so to speak. We're not, I'm not making any sound, yet our job is to make sure that everybody performs at his or her best. And there are many different, each orchestra is different. Within each orchestra, each personality is different. So we have people in our orchestra who need to be pushed. So I need to be more direct and harder with them. There are certain individuals that would add extra pressure. So I would have to talk to them, kind of set them aside and talk to them individually, like during a break or after the rehearsal. It's like, could you do this? Maybe let's do this differently, rather than singling out that individual in front of the whole group. Some people, and they're all different about this. Let's say you have a solo in the orchestra, and you have let's say you're a horn player. Okay, I'm just making this up. But are you a horn player? No, okay. You are for now. For the next 30 seconds, you are. So let's say you have a big horn solo coming up. Some horn players don't even want to be looked at because they want to be in the zone. So they don't like it when the conductor is making a big deal out of this upcoming solo. Just kind of let her do her thing, and after the fact, just kind of nod or smile. Or some people would want that definite cue to say, "Start now." And they really need that. Some people, they just, they want to do it in their own, that kind of messes up with their own mental preparation for that moment. So, it's all different. And this is the incredible part of being associated with the same orchestra for a longer period of time, is that, I guess it is like marriage, in a sense, that the longer you spend time with each other, you understand each other better. So since I've been here since 2008, now I feel that even though some of the musicians change, some of them retire or move away, we audition for new musicians. That is the nature of our business, but the whole culture, so to speak, of the orchestra remains. The whole DNA, the core DNA of the orchestra has remained. So as such, we get to know each other at a deeper level, and that is so gratifying. When we just had a concert on Saturday night, and it was that week was a good example for me, at least, just going through that week was sort of a great fruit of our labor over the years. So now we understand each other. When we play Beethoven, this is how we play Beethoven, or when we play Brahms, this is how we approach Brahms together. So that allows us to kind of dig in deeper into music, and hopefully that's something that translates to what we do on stage. And since I've worked so many times with our guest artist who was here last week, so I know how she approaches things. She knows how I do too. So it was a very special occasion. I know several of you were there, and thank you so much for being there. We have some exciting things coming up. I see William. We started. Is this now third year? Fourth year? Third. Wait, Swan Lake was first? Midsummer Nights, and this year. So this is, we have started an annual collaboration. I love conducting for the ballet. Because because our job as conductors, there are a lot of things that we do obviously physically, but I consider myself to be completely uncoordinated. I cannot dance. Like, my wife gave up on taking dance lessons together because I get, you know how it is, right? So she's good at it, I get frustrated, and I just go home. So anyway, so I learned so much from just working with dancers, and there's obviously so much great music written for dance and orchestra as ballet. So we are doing Sleeping Beauty this year at the Koga Center, and that's on March 30th, 2 performances. So that's something that we are starting to add. I don't know if any of you were able to join us for either the Star Wars that we did during the total eclipse, or the solar eclipse a couple years ago, or the Harry Potter thing that we did for Halloween. Those things are so much fun. What's great about classical music and orchestras in America nowadays? Rhonda mentioned some of the things like Healing Harmonies, which is taking our chamber group, so small group of musicians, to places like the Children's Hospital, VA Hospital, to share our music with the patients and the staff at these hospitals. Things like Conduct the Phil, which is sort of the pop-up you see at places like Solar City Market, where you can try your hand at conducting the orchestra and they will actually follow you. So that's fine. If you want them to go faster and more louder, you can have all sorts of fun with it. It's just like you're controlling the knob at the control, so to speak. All of these things, why do we do that? It's because nowadays for orchestras, there are so many different points of entry and points of connections with various constituents in our community. So part of that might be things like school concerts, things like more popular things like Harry Potter or Star Wars, could be things like Beethoven Blue Jeans we just did. So it's so important that we diversify our offerings, and I'm so grateful that we work with Rhonda and her team and our board members who are continually thinking of ways to how can we connect at a deeper level with wider segment of the community here in the Midlands. And so that's been such a gratifying part of my job here as the music director. But Harry Potter, Star Wars. Any Star Wars fans here? Don't be shy, I'm one. Right? So or you might know somebody, right? Okay, so so episode 9 comes out on May 24th. So on May 22nd, we are doing a big Star Wars bash at the Koga Center. So you can stay up late 2 nights in a row. Wednesday, and then Thursday just stay up till midnight and go to the very first showing of the Star Wars film. That's what I'm gonna do. Sorry. And then the other things, when I was living in town, I was in Behringer Building on Main Street. And just the last couple years, the evolution of the Main Street in Colombia is something that is phenomenal in my experience. And so we are, since the Core Center is slightly separated from Main Street downtown, so we're going to start doing a little bit of more intimate chamber music offerings at one of the locations on Main Street. We can't announce it yet because we haven't finalized it. What am I supposed to say where it is at?
You can. We've agreed to it. So.
Okay, so it's going to be at the Pastor's Study, which is the upstairs space of Ludo Drake on Main Street, the wine bar. So there's a lovely space upstairs, very intimate. So we'll have different types of chamber music offering with I'm assuming with wine, since it's a wine. So that will start. We'll do a pilot one this spring, and I think it'll turn into a whole new series in the fall as well. So yeah, so this sort of overview of where we are. Oh, I'm supposed to also mention, Rhonda made sure I mentioned different points of entry and different points of contact with our organization and several folks in the community. It might not even have to do with music. I mean, that's okay. So we have this tasting notes, which is a fantastic, speaking of wine, food and wine event we do as a big fundraiser at the State Museum. And that's going to be at, when is this? Monday, March 25th. So I'm sure Rhonda will be knocking on your doors, so to speak, over that. Any questions? Because I always feel when I come to these things, it's always more fascinating to see what questions you might have, and that will always spur on to like interesting stuff. So yeah.
I wonder if you would comment a little bit on the rise of the pervasiveness of digital music everywhere, and whether it's in the grocery store, the bathroom, the bus station, wherever, what that does to the appreciation of live performance, and a sort of slightly different tack, the pervasiveness of pop music and the lack of sort of teaching of classical canon in schools, what that does for classical music in particular.
Okay. Let's see, second part of the question, I was going to say something about this anyway. What's interesting is throughout, if you look at the history of classical music, quote unquote, composers of each time, people like Handel, Beethoven, Brahms, all of these people were deeply ingrained with the popular culture and the contemporary happenings of their day. And one interesting example for us this year is that we are doing a work by Caroline Shaw, who's a young, fantastic composer. She was the youngest Pulitzer Prize winner in music a few years ago. Incidentally, she will be here at USC with her. She's part of this phenomenal vocal group called Roomful of Teeth. And so they're here doing a free performance at for the Southern Exposure series. But she has a very interesting background because she also works as a producer. So she's produced a few tracks for Kanye West, for instance. But she's a classically trained violinist. So she performs as a violinist on all these albums, but composes, I guess, quotes, serious music, unquote. So we're doing a piece of hers on our March concert at the Koger Center. So you see a lot of times, especially now in American composers and what they do, there is an active dialogue I feel, between the popular music or the rock and roll type of thing versus what they do and how they can incorporate acoustic instruments like orchestra, but setting it in that contemporary language, and that's one of the interesting happenings of our time. You mentioned digital. Digital is interesting. It's an arena that orchestras traditionally have not succeeded too well because of the copyright issues for us. And this sounds like an old cliche, but I do firmly believe that you cannot replicate. It's like true with ballet, true with true with theater, or even visual arts too. There is something to be said about experiencing it live. That will remain unique. The question is, how do we use the digital realm to supplement it or complement it? And there are different ways people are doing that, especially tying in with social media, with few clips to kind of entice people to pique people's interests to go to the performances. But yeah, I always feel that there is something, because if you talk to any of the musicians in the orchestra, they will tell you that they will play differently when there is an audience. When we are rehearsing, that is still quote practice unquote. And then when the lights go up and on the stage, when there are over 1,000 people in the audience, it's an entirely different experience for us on stage. And that's sort of the beauty of the communal nature of performing arts that makes it special, is to experience it live. Any other? Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Art, do you have any thoughts on, for folks who have children and grandchildren, and we see certain things in our children or grandchildren or friends that might lend them towards music in one way or another? I mean, I've certainly noticed things in my family. I can't play anything, never had, but I have children that can pick up something and away they go. So is there anything that you see in somebody that says, gosh, that person needs to do something in the music world? Do you have any thoughts on who you can predict or seek or notice?
Or wait, how we can predict?
Well, not necessarily, I don't want to predict, but are there things that pop up that say this based on, like foreign languages is the same thing. Some have it and some don't, So are there things that we might be looking for in our children or our grandchildren or stuff like that might mean that they are going to be?
When I was a kid in Japan, obviously, first things we learned how to use growing up was chopsticks. I learned it, I don't know how, when I was very little. Treating though as they were drumsticks, obviously. So that was sort of the clue that to my mother that I was going to be number one, a trouble kid, and number two, I might be interested. I might have some sense. My wife and I don't have any children yet, so I can't speak from my own experience, but we do have many friends who do have young children, and what they say is a lot of the times maybe they're practicing at home, so they're listening to music, these young kids, and they have certain very interesting reaction to it. Maybe they prefer certain composers, or they start moving, they start moving along with it. I have a great friend who is a colleague of mine who's a pianist, and there's a cute YouTube clip of their oldest child just starting to mimic a conductor while he's practicing. And he's doing it in rhythm. This is incredible. There's sort of that sense of, I think, overall the sense of curiosity and kind of curiosity with sound, curiosity with different types of sound, rhythm. These things are probably a good indicator as well. Yeah.
The Coder Center's been around long enough now to have hopefully some type of reputation, or people around the world might have a feeling about the quality of the sound at that particular venue. What's your take on that, if it does?
On the sound of the Coder Center?
It's as a venue.
Yeah.
I was recently at the Grand Ole Opry, in the old place versus the new place. There's a difference in sound. Does it have a reputation for being a really good venue?
Yeah. Incidentally, is that coming up this week? Is it 30th?
Wednesday is the Coger's 30th anniversary.
30th birthday for the Coder Center is coming up this week, actually. So it's been around for 30 years. As such, I mean, that hall is for us, for orchestras. That hall is the best when we do large-scale works, because it is a huge space. So it works the best when we do something big, with many musicians on stage, producing, putting out a huge amount of sound, just dynamically speaking. Works the best. It might not work doesn't work as well from my experience. Something that's smaller scale, but I noticed that I take that to be sort of a good challenge for us. So usually for a stage that size, that huge, for the auditorium, the audience size also being very big from just a cubic feet standpoint, it's not really traditionally considered not very good for composers like Beethoven or Mozart, but that's part of our diet too. So we've taken it as a challenge to be able to do those composers at that big space, and how do we make it sound convincing? So it's actually helped our orchestra a lot. For years, the Philadelphia Orchestra has always been considered one of the best orchestras in the US and in the world. For years, they played in the Academy of Music, which acoustically was so dead. And if you listen to all those Stokowski recordings, Ormandy recordings with a huge, rich, creamy string sound, it's because that's what they had to do to project. So it came sort of as a necessity. That's how they learned to play, to bring the music to its full, bring music to realizing the music on the page into this real sound by the most convincing and touching way was that. We always say the hall is, wherever we play, concert hall is one of our instruments, in a sense, for orchestras, because the acoustics of the hall does affect how we play. And so for the Coder Center, yeah, so every hall has a little bit of quirks. But yeah, so it works very well for the huge stuff, and other things we know how to make it work. And if you talk to our audience members, they always have some people are very specific about where they want to sit in the audience. Maybe part of it is if they want to see a lot of people they want to see the hands of the pianists, piano soloists do have a piano solo, or some people prefer to actually sit towards the top so they can get the sort of the blend. Some people like to be hit more directly with the sound, so they like to sit towards the front. But you get more of a better balanced sound further away you go in that hall, actually. So yeah, it kind of depends. Yeah. Oh wait, let's see. Oh, you had it out. Yeah. So,
what's your favorite instrument?
Favorite instrument? I started outside of piano was when I was a little kid. My main instrument was clarinet. So I understand how the woodwind players think. So I know how to relate to them maybe best in the orchestra. But if I were to do it all over again, I would say my favorite instrument. Percussionists always have a lot of fun. Also, a lot of fun just playing with all those toys. Or if you're maybe if you're tired, you show up, depending on what the piece is, you count like 30 minutes of rest, play a few notes on the triangle, get your paycheck, and go home. But on a serious note, I would say, yeah, we don't pay them by the note. So some people love certain pieces because, oh, I show up, but then everybody knows that you missed that one note, so it's like a pressure in a different way. But cello, actually, I would say cello. I just love the resonance of that sound. Yeah.
So you're going to be doing another Star Wars themed 100 years from now, 200 years from now. Will John Williams be the Mozart of this generation? I mean, are movie soundtracks going to be what we think of, as classics?
In some ways, probably. I mean, it's hard to predict what's going to happen technologically too. But yeah, there's John Williams. I mean, especially considering a lot of people, especially in the U.S., they know the sound of the orchestra through these soundtracks too. So who knows? Yeah, some of his pieces might become considered like a classic or something like that. Oh, okay. Yes.
No question, but I just want to thank you and the Philharmonic for the work that you do with Midland's Technical College and the artists that you create with the pop too. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we will be out there again in April. Yes. Would you like to conduct anything on that one? If you have any questions about conducting, ask Dr. Raines because he's done it many times. Yes.
In terms of helping the kids develop a love of classical music, our boys are mid-20s, and they, I think, developed a love of serious music mostly through watching Fantasia. As little kids, we had a videotape and they watched it every day. And I think that's what gave them the love that they have today. Are you aware of anything like that today that are available that kids can watch, listen to draw them into serious music?
Yeah, I would say, well, the Fantasia series actually remains, and Bugs Bunny, those things remain classic. And now we do it, there's a package thing you can do where you can show those footages while the orchestra plays live. They're actually, interesting. I'm not a big gamer, but a lot of video games actually have fantastic classical pieces covering the wide gamut too. So there's there are things like that. There are things like family type programs, multimedia type of thing. Of course, a lot of us grew up on things like Peter the Wolf, probably, or Carnival of the Animals. That type of thing. So yeah, those things remain, continue to be, and then it's almost starting to become like John Williams is starting to take over that role as far as just hearing the sound of these instruments and hearing the colors and having the emotions associated with them. I think what's been happening with soundtracks, video game soundtracks, some of those things are also true as well. Yeah. Probably is gonna have to cut myself off. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Morihiko, thank you for coming back to the Columbia Rotary Club, and thank you for all you do to bring such world-class performing arts right here to South Carolina. Here's a small token of our appreciation. Just to save us a minute, next week our speaker is going to be Roki Suleiman, who is the director of the Richland County Elections and Voter Registration Office. So please come, next week, January 28th. Next week's King Day. We'll be back to hear Roki on January the 28th. So everybody has a great couple of